Hello and welcome to this episode of A Facilitator's Journey. Today I am joined by Clare Walkeden, a coach, a consultant, an entrepreneur and an endurance sportswoman who has had some crazy, amazing, life-changing adventures. And in today's episode, we talk all about what is the parallel between endurance sports, endurance mindsets, and running our businesses as solopreneurs. So you know the drill, team. Get a drink, get a cup of tea, and come join me on the pink chair and tune in your ears. Enjoy. Oh, what a conversation with Clare. The sporty, geeky side of me wanted to continue asking her lots of questions about her endurance cycling. Utter respect for her, and the fact what we didn't talk about is she can be out and cycling for like 6.5 days, and she might just sleep for like maybe 4 hours in a day. I mean, just utterly crazy. I am now just giggling as well about the mnemonic fine. Freaked out, insecure, neurotic, exasperated. I wonder how many of us are in that space or in one of those elements now. And just thinking about the fundamentals that we need to just consider to have a balanced and a good life of sleep, nutrition, movement, connection, and routine. And how do those show up for us in our businesses? I just encourage everyone listening to give themselves permission to think that one through. It's not that they're nice to haves, they're necessities, because we run our own businesses, people. And if you are not on tip-top form or even just able to manage yourself, like, your business can't run. I mean, some of you remember I sometimes lose my voice, and the last time I lost my voice was for 10 days. And I had to I couldn't do certain business. I had to ask other people to step in and do interviews for me. So look after yourselves, team. If you have enjoyed today's podcast, please hit like, give it a star, share it with somebody you think would find these conversations valuable. And if you'd like to get involved with SOF a little bit more, we've got a thriving WhatsApp group. There's about 260 people on there now from all around the world. And it is a space where facilitators, trainers, coaches, consultants are chatting away about managing clients, designing workshops, finding new clients, finding jobs, sharing jobs that people can't do for themselves. So if you want to know more about that, we'll put a link in the details below. Otherwise, go well, and I look forward to seeing you on the pink chair in a couple of weeks' time. Okay. Hey, Clare.
Hey.
Welcome to A Facilitator's Journey. Sorry, I'm giggling. I still have to look at the name of the podcast, even though this is like episode 45 that we're recording here today. Sorry. Apologies.
It's all right. It's definitely your podcast.
I know, but I still forget. Anyway, welcome. I've been wanting to have you as a guest for some time now because of all that you do. And we're going to talk about some of your, I was going to say extracurricular, but I think it's actually a whole part of you rather than a separate part of your business life. Clare, for our listeners, can you just share who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Clare. I run Auburn Consultancy. I'm a consultant, coach, facilitator. I work with individuals and organisations with purpose, and they're often in challenge, change, or a period of transition. And I'm also an endurance athlete.
She says, tacking it on at the end. She's pretty epic. Clare, how do we, and the other question, which you know, because I know you listen to this podcast yourself, how do we know one another?
Yeah, no, that is an interesting one because I always listen to what other people say and think, how on earth do I know Kirsty? And I'm not sure I've ever told you this. I was recommended to follow your Insta by, oh no, his name's just gone straight out of my head, Mossy.
Oh, really?
Used to do your tech. Because Mossy was doing some stuff for me and we were thinking about how we build my channels, or we were, this is a while ago now, and he said, oh, go and look at School of Facilitation, they're doing some cool things. So that's how I started following you. I know,
Like,
right?
did you know that?
And I didn't really know what facilitation was. I've come to realize I've been doing it without knowing in the last few years in particular. And
Yeah.
what changed, I think, was suddenly you were promoting a pod or a gathering maybe, and you said it's for trainers, facilitators, and coaches. And all of a sudden I was like, I can go, I'm a coach.
Yeah. Well, you're more than that. You're way more than that. And then you definitely, like, I think a good consultant is a facilitator. Like,
I
they
hope
use,
so.
so do I, but let's be honest. Sorry, consultants, if you're listening.
Yeah.
There's a lot who think their value comes through from the tell, not always from the pull. That's a whole other conversation. So the podcast is all about us running our businesses. Tell us a bit about your business. Like, how long have you been doing Auburn Consulting? What sort of things do you get up to in the business?
Yeah, sure. So unbelievably, Auburn's been around for 8 years. Over 8 years actually. I went out on my own in 2016. I'd been employed in-house as head of marketing, for want of a better term. Kind of started off in events, was an events manager, and then moved into the marketing comms role, and then eventually popped out the top as commercial director, so working much more on partnerships, sponsorships, etc. And all of that was within a charity, but it was a youth sport charity. So I guess that's where some of the bits of me come together, or they came from. So founded in 2016, an interesting year. I made quite significant changes in my life at that moment. But I left with no job to go to, thinking that in the 3 months notice period I would find something. But I think because I'd worked in a charity and done everything in this thing we call Marcoms that exists more widely now, but didn't then, I couldn't see anything I wanted to be in. I wasn't just a press officer or just a marketing executive or just a sponsorship manager. And then people started to phone me up as it got nearer to me leaving and saying, well, will you come and have a look at this for us? Or, oh, we've been waiting to see if you were going to leave at some point. Will you come over here and do this? And so I thought, well, I'll just suck it and see. And that's how Auburn came to be. And it was a very odd, challenging, pivotal moment in life. But I sometimes think when you've got nothing, when nothing is certain, everything is possible, right?
Great phrase. I love that.
Living in your mate's front room with sort of the 7 pairs of knickers you're left with and a laptop. You can take over the world, really.
Yeah. What else have you got to do? Yeah.
Yeah, what else
Oh my
have you got to
gosh.
do?
And what sort of things do you do with the organisations that you're involved with?
Yeah, so initially I went back into similar types of organisations, so sports governing bodies or big sporting events, and was contracted to do similar roles in Marcoms, marketing, on event media relations, sponsorships, partnerships, on event activation.
Any particular sports? This is where my brain wants to know.
Equestrian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about horses, but I know it's quite a cool scene, and it's quite an interesting scene because I've got some friends who event and compete.
Yeah, so quite niche. But yeah, went into similar organisations and did that sort of work for about 2 or 3 years. So was very lucky in some ways.
Brilliant.
And then was getting to the stage where I thought, hang on a minute, I'm walking around though still being other organisations. Actually, when I left, I wanted to be me.
Mm-hmm.
And then COVID came along, and I'd already started my coaching diploma, and that kind of work disappeared overnight because all the events were cancelled and nobody could afford any marketing. And it forced me into really getting on with thinking about who am I as a coach? What else do I bring with this skill set? What else can I do? Delivering content online, especially around wellbeing and organizational development. And so the whole business shifted really.
And shifted towards well-being.
Towards strategic consultancy, but with well-being as a foundational piece of the puzzle. So I firmly believe that if if we want people to perform at a level, to be at their best, to work together, to communicate well, to access cognition, then we need to understand the fundamentals of what it is to feel, do, and be well together.
Claire and I are recording this on a day that I have been sharing quite publicly, and also just wrote it in a journal, that I am feeling particularly flat, unenergized, probably at the edge of some sort of exhaustion and burnout. Claire keeps nodding at me at different points during this conversation, and also when we've been speaking beforehand. And I am in complete denial because, like, I'm fine in a very British way. And I think it's probably something that's really common for many of us who run our own businesses, that we're, wearing multiple hats, juggling many, many balls. What are some of the, you'd call it, like, foundations, like, within the wellbeing that you talk about, that I think it would be very helpful for all of us to know a bit more? Can you just talk to those, please?
Yeah, sure. I also love it when people say they're fine, freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and exacerbated.
Oh my God!
It's one of my favourite ones. But things like
I've never
that,
heard that.
have you not? And
No,
little
that's
things like
brilliant.
that are often such an indicator, especially around burnout. The one I hear quite often is, I just need to get to the weekend. I just need to get to the weekend, or we just need to finish this project. Is a bit of a red flag for me. So what are the fundamentals? And this always amazes me. They're the things I talk about the most, but they're the things that we all as human beings seem to have forgotten. But also, I think the world we're living in, if you excuse the pun, is not facilitating them either. So
Yeah.
there are 5. Sleep. We need to know what sleep looks like for us and how we access good quality sleep and how long we sleep, because we're all slightly different. So how we get to sleep, so 2 aspects, quality and quantity. How we get to sleep, how long we're asleep, and how we stay asleep.
Okay.
Nutrition sounds obvious, but we're all living these really fast-paced lives, and the marketing machine that's fueling us, quite literally, is a bit misleading, right? Especially the traffic light system on our lovely
Oh
pre-packed.
my God, don't.
And we know
Please,
when we eat
please
that
buy
stuff.
fresh. Don't buy ready meals. Don't. Oh God, make it yourself. Like, know what you're putting in your body.
Yeah, so staying hydrated, I'm going to say I'm awful at that. Of all the
How are
things,
you?
that's my worst. If I go to the gym, I'm fine. I'll knock it back in the gym, but yeah.
Really? I just have pints of water sat on my desk,
Yeah, I'm not
and I
good at
drink it
drinking
all the day.
water. I drink a lot of herbal tea and
Hmm.
things like that. So that's how I get around it. But yeah, nutrition. Look, I understand we're all busy. We can't all be making everything from scratch all the time, but the rise of and the evidence around the damage that ultra processed food is doing to us.
God.
And I always say that in particular, sleep and nutrition go hand in hand. So if we're not sleeping well, we're not eating well. When we're tired, right, that's when we want the carbohydrate. We go to
Yeah.
McDonald's. If we're not eating well, we're not sleeping well.
Yeah.
And some of the work that our body does when we're asleep requires or needs certain vitamins.
Right.
Otherwise, our brain, when it's doing its kind of washing and processing, it can't do those things properly. So those 2 things go hand in hand. So
Okay.
sleep, nutrition, movement. We're supposed to move. We're not supposed to sit at desks all day with these on. We need to stand up. We need to
Yeah.
move at least once an hour. We're designed to lift and carry, something Michael Easter talks about. He's tried to reintroduce, rucking, which is hiking underweight, basically. You're supposed to carry things. It's good for you, especially as we get older, especially as women. It's harder to build that skeletal muscle. And that's
Yeah.
also connected to things like the health of your cognition. So avoiding cognitive decline. So we're supposed to move and find ways to move that work for you. Doesn't mean you have to go to the gym, doesn't mean you have to do yoga, all of that. Find ways to move for you, especially walking is great. Connection, absolutely key. Even as a weird ginger introverter, I have to see people, or at least be amongst them. We are designed to live in tribes, and we
Yeah.
saw it in COVID, right? Everybody could suddenly see how unhealthy it was when you physically removed yourself from each other. But quite often, I think what we see is people feeling very lonely or isolated, even though they're in rooms of people. And so,
Oh, God, yeah.
especially in business, finding your people, and Kirsty, you're the master of what you've created with SOF as a part of this. Your community, I think, is so important to the people who are in it for that reason. It's a place to come where you don't have to explain. Everybody just gets it.
That's so
Awesome
true,
people.
isn't it? There's a number of times you can take any example, someone shares a story, and literally either the outpouring on our WhatsApp group or the in-person, you just see the nodding. Oh yeah, I've had that experience. And if you ask a question for help or ideas, oh my goodness me, like sometimes you have to temper people and go, okay, I've got enough ideas now. But it's wonderful, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
to know that there's just people who get it. And I think that's one thing I've noticed a real rise in the last 5-6 years is that of community. And maybe it's in our part of the internet, because we are all solo business owners and we know that the importance of coming together. But I think, yeah, more and more people are wanting that connection. I agree. So we've got sleep, nutrition, movement, connection. Any
Connection.
others?
And when I say connection, I mean also with ourselves. So being present. Because if we're not present, we can't notice that we're in burnout. So
if you're listening to this and you're not watching it on YouTube, Claire's like looking rather pointedly at me. I'm ignoring this. So Fest is a month away. I have no time to burn out.
we can discuss that afterwards. So connection with others, connection with yourself, but also connection with the world around you. So that's really important when we think about sustainability and what's going on in our world. We need to open our eyes, and perhaps we can touch on this with the endurance sport and riding my bike. It's like people have lost sight of this amazing world we have around us, which is what supports us. If this goes, we won't be here. And then finally, we won't be here. And then finally, routine. And by that, I don't mean that you have to be really boring and write your whole life on the side of the fridge on a big planet. If you want to, that's great. But you need some anchors as a human being. You know, we don't intrinsically like uncertainty. Firstly, we do need adventure and excitement. But having those few anchors, like knowing what time we get up, knowing we've got something in for breakfast, knowing that we've got some social stuff in the diary this week, boundarying our lunch times, things like that, really do help to keep us stable.
Yeah, that's really obvious now you say it.
Yeah.
I'm just sort of playing a few points in my life out where that wasn't the case. Yeah. Sorry, I'm nodding. Love this. So sleep, nutrition, movement, connection, and routine. And I guess as small business owners, we definitely need to look at all 5 of those, because at the end of the day, we are our businesses, and if we're not fully functioning, then there is a small problem there.
Yeah, I mean, if you've ever tried to go networking, for example, where you need to bring you and your energy and your cognition and your, I'm trying to think of the word you used earlier, feel energized. That's really, really hard, isn't it?
Yes.
When you haven't slept well, maybe you've missed breakfast, you've been at your desk for 2 weeks and not seen anybody, you've not been to the gym even though you promised yourself. So that wheel of those 5 fundamentals, it drives itself. It goes round and round and round.
Yeah.
A bit like the motivation loop, but less helpful.
And I'm just thinking about it from our point of view. Well, actually, all 5 of these are well and truly documented in the world. And I think it's probably for each of us listening to this or speaking is like, even just start with a score out of 10. How would I rate the quality and quantity of my sleep? How would I rate what I put inside my body? How I stay hydrated? How would I rate out of 10 my movement, whether that's standing up in the day through to additional activities that I weave into my week? How am I finding that connection? And I love that with self, others, and the world. And what anchors do I have in my world, into my it sounds like, what anchors do I have into my day, my week, my month? Like, what are the rhythms I'm putting out there for myself? Love that. Okay. Can you? I've still got it going around in my head. What does FINE stand for again?
Freaked out, insecure, neurotic, exasperated, exasperated.
I don't think I'm neurotic. I'm not insecure. Am I freaked out? I'm high sunshine yellow. We were just laughing about this. I'm a high extrovert feeler, so I can freak out over the smallest things sometimes and run around like a headless chicken. Whilst Claire would be the cool, calm, collected one, going, Kirsten, it's just in front of your eyes. Like you put down your keys, they're just there. Exasperated. I got exasperated, and when I get I don't get a short temper. You know how some people used to go get a short temper and they fire off and get angry? I get exasperated. So like today, I'm going to name it. I was on the Espel website buying my team presents, which by the way, team, I haven't bought them yet because I got so fucking exasperated. They offered up a load of freebies. None of them would select. So I wrote to their chat bot, got through to a human who then just proceeded to tell me, oh, that means they're not there. I said, well, maybe can I talk to someone in your digital team to give some feedback on the website not being a user-friendly piece of user friendliness? And they were like, no. I was like, well, that's really irritated me now.
Yeah.
That's me being exasperated, and it's just small thing, and it shouldn't bother me. Normally that stuff I'd just be like, well, sod it, you don't get my business.
And that's the thing, right? It's that self-awareness, isn't it? Knowing what's normal for you and when things aren't normal. And so I realize as I'm sitting here talking, I'm talking again almost exclusively about well-being, even though you asked what I do these days. And these days I do, away days and work with people strategically and coach leaders one-to-one. But all of that is underpinned by the fact that we can't do these things if we all feel grotty.
Yeah. And yet we try and push through. Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
How do we balance it though, being like running our own businesses? Like what have you seen? Probably, I think we can only talk from our own personal perspectives. Like, how do you manage any one of these 5?
I don't sometimes, or I definitely haven't at points in life. It's probably a good moment to talk about an endurance mindset, possibly.
Yeah.
So I think it's that, a bit like coaching, really. I call it that helicopter view. It's that watching brief. And in order to do that, says the high C, who works strategically, you've got to do the foundational piece. So what does good look like? What does normal look like? What does success look like? So where are we? Where do we want to be?
Yeah.
How do we want to get there? Because if we don't set that out, we don't know what we're striving for. Exactly the same as when we're doing a piece of work. And in order to notice that, and in order to feel it and sit with it, we have to be present. So we have to be able to give ourselves some space and some grace to do that. And then, it's kind of that, a bit like the 5 fundamentals. It's an ongoing wheel. So I've thought about this in relation to the ultra sport that I do. So in order to keep moving for long periods of time on a bike in quite challenging terrain, you can keep dragging yourself, a bit like running a small business, but you will get slower and slower, and eventually you may fail. You'll also start to make silly mistakes. So if you're riding really tired, you're more likely to fall off, slash a tyre, go the wrong way, etc.
Leave your very expensive kit somewhere in a wood.
Well, I didn't leave it. It left me. But yeah. It's a really
good abandoned ship, did it, Claire? It jumps off the back of your bike.
It's a really good example, Kirsty, because actually, this year has been quite challenging, and there have been several things like that where I'm like, how on earth have you managed that? Like spending half an hour looking for a tent pole that I'd already packed the other day, and logic told me I must have packed it because it's not in the field, and now I'm late. And then I'm really stressed because it's a really expensive piece of kit. So it's a really good example that, we start to, and if you think about teams when they're in these positions, you're asking them to cognitively think differently, creatively, together, strategically. you begin to see how you just can't do that if those fundamentals are knocked.
Yeah, so the fundamentals being back to the sleep, the nutrition, the hydration, the routine, the connection, movement. You've referred a couple of times to your an endurance mindset, and also the fact that you participate in an endurance sport. Can I know what that is? Can you just tell our lovely listeners, please? What do you choose to do?
I'll try to. So, I mean, it's evolved. I started doing, I wasn't very what you would call sporty at all, but I did used to ride horses, which I think probably instills quite a level of discipline. And then about 10 years ago now, I'd stopped having horses and dabbled in some running, as everybody does. Did the London Marathon, and that was kind of okay. But
sorry, can I just pause you at that one? I'm just writing a presentation workshopy speech thing for next week, and talking about ambition, because it's titled Fuel Devotion. Only 2% of the UK population have run a marathon. People don't dabble in running. Just want to go. Only 2% of the stats show us that people have run a marathon in the UK. So that's a thing to do. It's not just
it's an amazing day out, London, as well.
it's
so
incredible.
I'll forever be grateful for London. But I mean, running was okay. I didn't love it, although I think I'd probably think different about it now. Anyway, somehow, really oddly, that I probably won't go into, I then had to go at triathlon and remembered that I couldn't swim. So I joined a tri club, or rather I entered a triathlon and then remembered I couldn't swim and I'm really scared of water. So joined a club, which of course, being me, I ended up being secretary of, and a little bit further down the line, event director for the local triathlon.
That sounds like me. I joined a club and then end up being club captain, or running the team, or being the social secretary. That doesn't surprise anyone.
I'm an all or nothing girl is the default position. Yeah, so I did that, and I did basically, I think I did 2 sprint triathlons, a middle distance or an Olympic. And then I went straight to Ironman. And that's not because I've got any talent. It's just because I'm really good at going slowly for long periods of time.
Oh, can we just talk about that? So I had exactly the same journey with my tries. So I'd entered a load before COVID happened. Oh no, I entered one in 2019. I was doing one of my final training runs with my best mate, and we turned left, and she stuck her leg in between my legs, and I tripped and pulled my hamstring really badly, so I couldn't do that. Then I sort of deferred, and then COVID happened, and then after COVID, I suddenly had this email from the Royal Windsor Tri going, "Congratulations, you've still got your place." I was like, did I even enter? And they're like, yes. So I suddenly realized I had 3 months to sort myself out. So I did my first try in like 2022. I did 2 sprints one weekend after the other. I did the Royal Windsor, thought that was fun. Then my coach said, well, why don't you find another one? There's one next weekend. So I thought, oh, okay, I'll do that. And then after I did that, he said, so what are you going to do next season? I went, oh, I don't know, maybe the Olympic. He went, no, I think you should do go for half Ironman. And I went, what? Don't be ridiculous. And he said, yeah, you'll be fine. That was my university friend. And so like you, the reason I didn't do the full Ironman, Claire, is I get bored on the bike. And I just thought cycling for 180 kilometers on my own. I mean, it was bad enough 90 kilometers on my own, talking to the cows in the New Forest.
Get bored talking to the cows. I mean, it's one of my joys, talking to the animals.
I know. We'll talk about that. But I get bored. But you did a full Ironman. Okay.
I've done 4.
Kudos.
I did, and that so I did Austria because everybody needs to do Austria. Austria is like the London Marathon of Ironman. You know, it's carpet dancing girls, all of that. I did it really badly. Then I did Ironman Lanzarote because it was then billed as the hardest in Europe. Then I went back and did Austria and was significantly faster. My life was significantly different by then. And then I did the Brutal, which
was that the one in Helvellyn?
Oh no, that's Wasdale X. That's sadly no more, and the Brutal was no more, but it's just been brought back. So it's an extreme uh, Ironman. So same distances, but you swim in Lake Paddon. It's really cold. You do 4 laps of Llanberis Pass on the bike, and then the run for the full that I did. I say that because there's also a double and a triple. You do 3 laps of the lake, and then you ascend and descend Snowdon. And to everybody's absolute joy and horror, I was first female home. A girl who'd never won anything
That's
in
amazing.
her life. This is 2017.
Yeah.
And it kind of changed everything because I was
Right.
like, do you know what? I enjoyed that. And I enjoyed the technicality of it. I enjoyed the grind. I enjoyed the not going past the women I'd been competing with all day, but I enjoyed the game because it is
Hmm.
about the long game when it's like that.
Oh, yeah.
So I had a run walk strategy, whereas some people were trying to just drag themselves. And actually, I can walk really fast. And that's what kept me going. And I ran down Snowdon. And then then I was like, okay, so what interests me as in life with work is the strategy, the nitty gritty of it, the getting to, the marginal gains, if you like. And that's when I started entering firstly longer stuff on the road. So classics like Paris, Brest, Paris, London, Edinburgh, London, Meal Cummery. So really quite hilly stuff as well. And then I moved into fully self-supported off-road nonsense. After saying I would never
I'm
ride a
actually just sat
mountain bike.
here. Dear listener, I just want to say at this point, if anyone else is feeling slightly inferior and they're proud of their weekend 10K, whatever it might be,
It all
we are
counts.
we are in the norm. Claire is in that small 0.0000% of. That's incredible, Claire. I mean, I'm being facetious, but having done the half Ironman and like I was just on the move for 8 hours, which again, this new phraseology of type A, type B fun, type A as in question your sanity whilst in the middle of doing it all. And then you get to the end of it and you're like, huh, that was all right. I did feel like that. And again, to your point, and I'm not as strategic as you by any stretch of the imagination, but I have learned how to fuel myself correctly and how to hydrate on the move. And if I don't eat, you have to eat when you don't even feel hungry.
Yeah.
Because if you don't,
If you're hungry
that's
or
when all
thirsty, you've left it too long.
you've totally screwed up. So, so what has cycling up a mountain in the French Alps in the middle of the night? Because I follow Claire, I dot watch her now. I am that person who is her little voice on Instagram going, "Keep going, love. I can see you. Keep going. I'm with you." While I am tucked up in bed. But what? Help us understand a bit more about what's it like doing these endurance cycling events.
It's amazing and awful.
Mm.
Yeah, sometimes it's awful. But I have to try and set myself off. I've got a very dear friend who's been very ill for a long time, longer than anybody expected, bless her. And I always remember her saying, we did our first Ironman together. And she said, the thing is, Claire, this is a chosen suffering, and that's a privilege. And so I always remember in my, okay, I have to try it to set myself
It's
off.
okay.
Yeah, it's a chosen suffering. I get to choose it. And also, I think I was talking to you earlier about how we've forgotten as human beings that we are supposed to experience discomfort.
Yeah.
So there is the right sort of suffering. Discomfort is where the growth is. Again, Michael Easter wrote about the comfort crisis. Sometimes in life now, there's a bit of a narrative around it all has to be calmer and comfortable and safe. And actually, that's really unsafe for us. Intrinsically, that doesn't feel very good. So I'm not saying you have to do what I do
No.
by any stretch of the imagination. But, even if it's your first time walking up Snowdon, or let's say you go and camp out for the evening, you might even try a wild camp at some point. That little bit of adventure is so,
Yeah.
so good for you.
just thought that you made me think, just say walking up Snowdon. I was with my therapist this week. We haven't seen each other for about 5 weeks for various reasons. And he was telling me about how the first time he ever walked up Snowdon, he saw someone walking up in Crocs.
Yeah.
Crocs. Why?
Cardigans, flip-flops.
What the fuck? Anyway, minor detail. Now, what has all of this, though, taught you when it comes to running a business and working with other SMEs and organizations?
Yeah, so it's brought together my thinking on that endurance mindset piece, which kind of has 6 areas to it. And that is that we all have to keep moving forward, but a bit like during a race or an event, however I want to term it, you're going to have to rest. You have to know when to let go. You have to know when to sit with the discomfort. And you've got to have a good level of self-awareness around things like, so like the second module area I talk about is what's it all mean? So do you know your values? How are you living them? And if you don't know what they are, how do you know where's your compass? Are you with the wrong people? Closing the knowing and doing gap, so accessing metacognition. We have this amazing thing as human beings that we don't use enough, so we can think about our thoughts. No other animalia can do that, I don't think. I think that's...
Oh, so you're like, so what? Okay, let me check. I understand that. Oh, there you go. Let me check. I can understand that. So I'm having a thought. Do I understand what Claire's saying? I need to check my thinking on my thinking so I can like helicopter view it.
And motivational reasoning is a part of that. So I think especially when we're running our own businesses, lots of us get in our own way. So we'll either, because the neural process is so fast. Once we've dug the habit, we can very quickly go, oh, it's uncomfortable, bat it away.
Yeah.
And so that's how we create habits that aren't useful, especially if we backfill them with something that gives us a bit of a dopamine hit. And our motivational reasoning, and I actually think as coaches in particular, or people in our field who are really knowledgeable around these things, we're worse for motivational reasoning because we can go, oh, well, I know I did that. I'm a high C, so I'm just going to do it anyway because that's... Stop bloody doing it.
Yeah. Next.
Yeah. Knowing your North Star. So, okay, we want to gain momentum, we want to perform, but what does success look like for you?
Yeah.
So, you know, I've nothing against the phrase start before you're ready. This could be the high C in me, but I think if you start without some anchors, you're just rudderless, for want of a better term, aren't you? And I've seen so many people. I've recently done the NatWest Accelerator, who are younger and starting businesses, and they start with nothing, but they're just sort of like pinballs going off in all directions. And we know the statistics on failure in small businesses. So yeah, just be aware of like what's your direction of travel? What are a few things that'll tell you in the right direction? And then get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Interrogate those thoughts, feelings, and behaviors as a part of that, because and I've heard you talk about this, it will show up in your work, whether you're running a business or whether you're in doing work with an organization. You need to know.
Yeah, that's so true. And I don't think a lot of us pause to think about that. I mean, I haven't. Sometimes do and go, oh, sugar. Why don't I say, oh, shit, I'm in front of a client. I better how do I want to be right now?
I can't imagine you would ever turn up in any other state than professional and highly functional, Kirsty.
Yeah, but I think it leaks. And there's a great phrase, you cannot not communicate. And where we've got other things going on in our head or our heart or our body, some of us can mask it a little bit better. I'm pointing at Claire right now. I, on the other hand, all you have to do is ask me a question and literally written all over my face. I mean, I still remember my English teacher when I was 11 just making this comment, Mrs. Pringle, you wear your heart.
What a name. It's like a fairy tale.
Great name. I love her name. I love Mrs. Pringle. I like my English teacher. And she said, you wear your heart on your sleeve. And I had to take that home to my mum, and she explained to me that means, Kirsty, that we can see what you're thinking in your head. But it's funny, isn't it? The things you still recall and remember. That really stuck with me. The other thing we were talking about as we were planning this conversation, about the endurance piece, and you were telling me about, I was sharing with you how, I'm feeling energetically flat at the moment. We've talked about my feeling fine, and how just like disengaged is really unfair, but not feeling the love of the business and just getting through things. And I've got like a month until SoFest, and feeling sort of, I was saying to my therapist, sorry, I have to get him to listen to this, but I was saying, he's like, are you excited? And I was like, meh. And he's like, what's that? Obviously, because all good therapists do, don't they? And I was just saying, yeah, I am excited for it, but I'm not like overtly out there on the excitement level. And I think it's because of the tiredness. But you were telling me about the whole, how did you describe it? You were just saying to me about, when we get good at stuff, we start to flatten, and flatten in terms of our emotions. I was wondering, can you talk to that some more? So that everybody gets the benefit of your wisdom, just like I did.
The benefit of my wisdom. I love
that.
So in terms of, I was explaining it around what I've experienced on the bike this year in particular, but I think we all experience it when we run our own businesses. But also I see it in founders that I often work with, or founders, founder-run organizations. And that's because you get good at what you do. You might call it mastery or whatever. And so that those things that used to heighten you in some ways, and there is a fine line between excitement and fear. I mean, I know it most of the time. But the more you do something, the better you become at it, and therefore the easier it becomes. And therefore we don't push that little bit of adrenaline or dopamine. We don't have that reaction in the same way. And so we feel more flat about it, and we recognize that as well, that flatness, that lack of excitement, and therefore I'm not deriving any joy from this anymore. And so after Alps Divide last year, which you alluded to earlier, that was my undoubtedly greatest, biggest success of all time. I probably won't ever come anywhere near that. But it's also caused me to have a challenging period when it comes to riding, and a lot of reflection around it. And I think a lot of that is because I learned so many lessons, and I got so much of it right, which is such an unusual thing for me to be able to say, that when I've come into this season, there is nothing as frightening. You can remind me of this when I'm due to leave for Scotland next week, but rarely there is anything as frightening. And I know my kit's set up inside out, and I know how to survive. And therefore I was going, oh, this is boring. I don't know if I want this anymore. This isn't doing anything for me. And I was going riding similar routes that I've done before, because I know they deliver the terrain I need and the challenge I need, and not deriving anything from it. And it's because I'd done it. Like Wayfarer the other day used to scare the bejesus out of me. I actually ascended and descended it the other day, realised I'd left my gilet up there and had to reascend it. And I just didn't even give it a second thought.
Did you find the gilet, by the way?
I did. I didn't tell you about that one. That was I could not leave it there. But
I'm not. Can just for help people just picture or understand what's Wayfarer and how high what's a descent and a ascent.
Wayfarer is probably not that high. It's just very hard going. It's really hard to explain some of the surfaces I ride on. I can't do inverted commas unless you're watching. A lot of what I'm riding on is big, loose rock in Wayfarer. Wayfarer, imagine it a bit like a riverbed. I don't know, it probably goes up to about 700 meters or something. It's not small, it's not huge. It's just about rideable. Sometimes it isn't. There's water, there's big puddles, there's big holes in it. And so when I descended off the side, which by the way, I used to have to walk down, it'd take me 2 hours. So it would take me like 3-4 hours. And the other day it took me about an hour and 20 minutes.
Wow.
And that was I suddenly went, that's what's going on there. It's not testing me.
And do you think that happens for us in businesses as well then?
I think so. I think we go through, I think I've experienced this where my business is at a turning point or a new chapter, let's say. It's not different, but it's a new chapter. And it's all very difficult in the beginning, isn't it? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm doing it and it's great and it gets easier. But if you just carry on that trajectory, I think most of us get a bit bored with it, which is always why I've had to have a portfolio.
Yeah, I could totally relate.
Can't just do one thing. It's not
enough. I get so bored. And then I was laughing with Claire. I went, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is why we have SoFest. Literally, I was like, an unconscious part of me, Claire, last summer, because it was around June and July, I announced that we were going to do SoFest finally, after me talking about it with a few people for like 8 years. And then I suddenly went, yeah, it's happening, because I think unconsciously I couldn't fathom doing another year of just pure corporate work, which I love, by the way. I feel very grateful for it, but I needed something else in my life.
Yeah. And I suspect, a bit like me going to Scotland next week, when you get to a week out or a few days out, you'll get the adrenaline hit from the fact that that's coming. I think the space you're in now is a bit where I am with packing for Scotland well, I've done the training, all the kit's in piles. There's nothing else I can do now. I also have it on the finish line. It's not just me, other people have it on the finish line. I think people expect you a lot of the time to finish a big race like Alps Divine, burst into tears. It's all very emotional because, that's what we do on the TV. I tend to go about 2-3 hours. I vividly remember about 2:00 of an afternoon on Alps Divide. I finished at 10 at night, just being in floods of tears, still riding uphill, obviously, because I knew I'd done it.
Yeah.
Bar having a mechanical or it flipping snowing on me again. I had done it.
Yeah.
And just the acceptance and the relief and so by the time I got back, I was like, yeah, great, okay, well, thanks for that.
Where's my pizza?
Yeah, I had to have a tuna baguette. It was couldn't get any hot food.
Oh, was Russ not there? Did he not suddenly pop up with something?
Well, yeah, he was there. They're funny things, the end of ultras. I mean, to be honest, that was a rare one because it was a bigger race, and so people had stayed out. The media crew had just gone, so that was a bit gutting. But sort of 10 or 20 people there. But I finished quite significant races before, and there's no one there because it's a niche sport.
It is a niche sport.
So you got to clap for yourself.
Well, and that's the other thing. In our businesses, it's a niche sport. I think we think, oh, everybody's doing this. I don't know what the stat is of small business owners in the UK.
Somebody said it this morning at that breakfast. You've reminded me after the stat about marathons. It's something like only 7% of people venture out on this journey. And they said exactly the same, that we think everybody's experiencing this. But we're here, hanging on, still doing it, clapping for ourselves. And as you say, community, clapping for each other. It's never been more important to find your people.
Totally. Especially this year, which is 2025, if you happen to be listening in another year. And it's feeling tough. It's not feeling the smoothest. I'm not going to say easiest, just smooth. Business is tough, but it's not the smoothest of years, is what I'm noticing.
And the discussion this morning is that that's probably not going anywhere.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. So I think, shamelessly, on a marketing perspective, that an endurance mindset is what we're all going to have to adopt.
I think you're right. And It's about, maybe that's just a bit of re-education. I think you might need to come on the community pod next, Claire. Come and do a chat for the group. There is one person we haven't spoken about that I'd like to talk about before we do quick fire questions.
I went into panic then. I was like, oh, no, okay.
So, Claire, you, I'm gonna just like big Claire. So you need to go and find her on LinkedIn, Clare Walkeden, and Claire's very good at taking photographs. And this week she has been sharing, or the last couple of weeks, sharing about her adventure that she just did. And suddenly this photo of Claire pops up on my feed of Claire and Jeff. And what you need to know is Jeff was a rather scared looking lamb. Tell us about Jeff, Claire.
I love the animals. It's one of the reasons I ride my bike. I grew up around a lot of animals. And when you're on your own, there's nothing to talk to you but animals, like marmots. I mean, I had so many conversations with the marmots last year. Yeah, Jeff was a lamb. I was out on my final training block the other day, and it was ballistically hot that afternoon and nothing had gone to plan. It was the day of Wayfarer and I didn't know when I was catching a train or where I was going to sleep. And I felt responsible because Jeff actually got a bit scared by me coming up the road. And so he started running and his mum was shouting and then this went on for far too long. So I had to retrieve Jeff. He was so soft and so comforting, but he did wee on me.
Yeah.
But, thankfully, I had the foresight to take a selfie with him and use it as content.
Take a selfie. As you do now in this day and age.
The number of people who've said, "Oh, that's good of Jeff to take a selfie with you."
I hope you got his written permission.
Well, I'm renowned for giving animals names. I don't know where it came from. I've got a heron called Joel. So whenever you see a heron, I go, oh, it's Joel. Joel. And people message me now and say, oh, I've just seen Joel in Girona. Oh, I've just seen Joel in Nottingham.
Normally I'm like, I give like the animal the name that they begin with. But Joel, how did you get Joel for a heron?
They just tell me.
That's a conversation we're going to have around the campfire. So listen, if you're listening to this podcast, I think we're going to try and get it out before SoFest. Claire is speaking at SoFest about an endurance mindset, so you'll be able to meet her in person and say a big hello. Claire, I could carry on this conversation so easily, but I've never done longer than an hour in a conversation. I don't feel like I can do a Josh Rogan and. Do people listen to podcasts for 3 hours? I mean, I don't get that. Yeah. Because even like though you're on your bike for all that, do you listen to stuff when you're on your bike or do you have a no noise policy?
Sometimes, usually when it gets very tough, and some people swear by it, I actually really enjoy the sound of nature. It seems rude somehow to me a lot of the time too. But yeah, when it gets hard, I keep meaning to release my Alps Divide soundtrack because it just becomes hilarious as well. So that song where paranoia, paranoia, everybody's coming to get you came on that second to last day when I was being chased down. It was just so funny.
Chased down by what? Another competitor or a marmot?
Feeling I was being chased down by Neil and Will, which I was, but they were always going to have me.
Yeah.
So that was fine. Things like, oh, I'm not sick, but I'm not well. just sums it up.
Thinking. I love that. Yes. Is that on the playlist for SoFest? Have you put those on?
I should put them in. And there is something magnificent about I quite like drum and bass and trance.
Oh, do you?
So listening to things like, I don't know, riding through Scotland at dusk, listening to Bicep by Glue or a bit of Chase and Status in the dark is pretty cool.
Well, I think it gets you going. Okay, right. Let's do the quick fire questions before we just go off and have a Kirsty and Claire happy chat. And everyone's like, what are they talking about now? What advice would you give to someone starting out?
I think that thing I said earlier about a few key anchors, and I'd really recommend your values as a part of that.
Oh, God, yeah.
That's your compass. It's going to lead you to your people. It's going to give you that gut feel when something's not right. And also, what does success look like for you? Not what does it look like for LinkedIn or all those other Instagram.
Your parents.
Your parents, yeah. And you'll
I remember,
feel it, you'll know, but it'll grind you down if you ignore it.
On success, by the way, criteria for parents. I remember I didn't tell my mum and dad that I was leaving Diageo until I was really clear and like what my plan was. And when I did tell them, I feel like this was the first thing my dad said. I'm sure it wasn't. Does that mean you're going to lose your gold card with DA? Because he was more happy with my status that I was flying business class and doing a lot of travel than, I mean, I loved it, don't get me wrong, but it's funny what people say to you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Who do you follow in social media land that you think others should too?
Yeah, I'm not sure of you, obviously.
Aww.
Social media land. I'm quite eclectic. I do follow Michael Easter and subscribe to his Substack. So I just like the work he does. I'm very evidence led as a coach.
Right.
And a strategist, and I like the level of detail he gives around thinking about what are we doing to the human condition and how is it showing up.
Ooh. Easter, how do you spell Easter?
As in Easter, I think, like EAS.
Cool.
I can't think of his other book. He's got two, but one is The Comfort Crisis.
So I was going to ask you, what books do you recommend?
So mine are maybe a bit different. I don't know. So In Her Nature by Rachel Hewitt is an incredible book about the progression of women, particularly in outdoor sports and alpinism, and actually how we gained a lot of ground and then went backwards and where we are now. It's a really good read. Other Ways to Win by Lee Craigie. Oh, Lee Craigie, who was at the end of HT 550 when I finished last time. Absolute fangirl. So yeah, talks about her career as a Commonwealth athlete, and then in the end, what did she really want? And actually, that wasn't what success looks like, even though she was incredibly successful.
Amazing. Wow.
And I guess similarly, Solo by Jenny Tuff. Another fangirl moment. Met her on Col de Sommelier on Alps Divide.
Did you?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God, that's one of my best stories ever. I have to get it out at SoFest.
Do. I will come to you for that. I didn't cycle Col de Sommelier. How have you invested in yourself or your business to support you in moving forward?
Therapy. Always with the therapy.
Yeah. I concur.
Yeah.
It is useful.
And different people to work with. Actually, and even my physio is very much my physiotherapist. I think there's something to be said for having different people, and they might be the same things, but they're for different ways, and finding people who are for you.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I do huge amounts of CPD as well because I love learning, oddly. Can't imagine why. But yeah, always doing CPD.
Brilliant. Claire, thank you so much for being my guest today. I've absolutely loved this conversation. How can people connect with you? Where do they find you?
Yeah, so find me on LinkedIn as Clare Walkeden or Auburn. So Auburn like the hair, AUBURN. You can also find me under the same name on Insta, but you can watch my outdoor adventures on @the_Auburn_Outdoors over on Instagram.
Brilliant. Claire, thank you so much, and see you in the field.
See you in the field, Kirsty.
Oh, what a conversation with Claire. The sporty, geeky side of me wanted to continue asking her lots of questions about her endurance cycling. Utter respect for her, and the fact what we didn't talk about is she can be out and cycling for like 6.5 days, and she might just sleep for like maybe 4 hours in a day. I mean, just utterly crazy. I am now just giggling as well about the mnemonic fine, freaked out, insecure, neurotic, exasperated. I wonder how many of us are in that space or in one of those elements now. And just thinking about the fundamentals that we need to just consider to have a balanced and a good life of sleep, nutrition, movement, connection, and routine. And how do those show up for us in our businesses? I just encourage everyone listening to give themselves permission to think that one through. It's not that they're nice to haves, they're necessities, because we run our own businesses, people. And if you are not on tip top form, or even just able to manage yourself, like, your business can't run. I mean, some of you remember I sometimes lose my voice, and the last time I lost my voice was for 10 days. And I had to, like, I couldn't do certain business. I had to ask other people to step in and do interviews for me. So look after yourselves, team. If you have enjoyed today's podcast, please hit like, give it a star, share it with somebody you think would find these conversations valuable. And if you'd like to get involved with SOF a little bit more, we've got a thriving WhatsApp group. There's about 260 people on there now from all around the world. And it is a space where facilitators, trainers, coaches, consultants are chatting away about managing clients, designing workshops, finding new clients, finding jobs, sharing jobs that people can't do for themselves. So if you want to know more about that, we'll put a link in the details below. Otherwise, go well, and I look forward to seeing you on the pink chair in a couple of weeks' time.